Number 1. When I was 10 years old, I used to have this recurring nightmare. It was about my death, to put it bluntly. I can't remember all the details, but in all the dreams, I would be looking through what might have been a window frame from the outside. There was also an orange jacket or garment on a chair inside which I could see through the window. I would make a motion as if I was going to ascend a rung, and suddenly I would fall what felt like at least 3 stories. Then I'd be lying down, just staring up at the sky, and I would see a wooden ladder which presumably I fell from. The image of this ladder leaning against a house would be the last thing I see before waking up. These nightmares probably wouldn't have caused me so much distress if it hadn't been for how goddamn realistic they felt. I could smell the air, feel the sun on my back. I could even feel the incredible pain throughout my body as I lay on the ground. Anyways, I pretty much forgot all about these nightmares as I grew older. I stopped having them at around the age of 11, and never had one again. I'm 33 now, and my good friend just got married to his high school sweetheart. We'll call him Jerry. They live in a nice barn-style house which he built himself. I have limited carpentry skills, but despite knowing this, my friend asked me to help him with certain parts of the building process. Drywall, putting in windows, shingling and whatnot. I think he just wanted to spend some quality man time with me, to be honest. It took a total of 11 months to complete the house, and, like I said, I'd drop by from time to help Jerry with the odd job. Once the house was nearing completion, Jerry had started putting in the windows. He asked me to come down one weekend to help him put in some windows on the 3rd floor. We ended up doing a few that Saturday, and called it quits at around 7. Sunday morning, Jerry called to ask a favour. There was a big storm coming on Sunday night, and he had realised that while we did put the windows in, we didn't seal one of them with caulking. He didn't like the idea of water getting inside after we'd just put the drywall up, and he asked me to seal the window up soon if I could. He had to take his wife to the hospital, and as such, he wasn't able to do it himself, and I only lived 20 minutes away. So, after a brief McDonald's breakfast, I headed down to the house, found the caulking gun, and then searched for a ladder. Jerry had brought 2 down to the site, 1 aluminium and 1 wood. I grabbed the wooden one, as it was already on the side of the house with the unsealed window. Once I propped it up against the house, I began to ascend. Once I was high enough, I was able to peer through the window, and when I did, I felt like a jolt of electric fear went through my body. The nightmares I had as a kid came back to me in a flash. The smell, the warm sun hitting my back, it was identical to the dream. And I also recognized Jerry's orange hunting jacket that he had left on a chair on the other side of the window. Everything was exactly the fucking same. Remembering that in the dream when I took the next step I fell, I quickly descended the ladder and went to my truck feeling kind of disturbed. I stood there for a while, debating if I should try and seal the window or not. In the end, I tried my best to seal it from the inside. I'll admit I did a half-assed job, but hey, can you blame me? I finished up and went home, trying to forget all about it. The following weekend, Jerry asked me to come down and help him shingle the roof. When I arrived there, I noticed that Jerry was limping a bit. When I asked him what happened, he said he rolled his ankle when one of the rungs on his wooden ladder broke. He was only a few feet up, so it wasn't a big deal. That was it for me. I stayed calm, but mentally I was a wreck. Not only did my dream somehow predict that the ladder broke, I felt like shit because I never warned Jerry. The part that really gets me though, is that later I realised that I had the ladder upside down when I climbed it, meaning that the defective rung would have been near the top. When Jerry went to use it, he must have flipped it the other way so the rung was near the bottom. I still think about this from time to time. and it never ceases to disturb me. Number 2. Quite a number of years ago now, my then fiancée and I were driving home in a storm after visiting her parents. She was at the wheel, and I was chilling in the passenger seat. It was absolutely pitch black, and we can't see much beyond our headlights. Other than the crappy conditions outside, everything was normal. We were listening to the radio and chatting about something that now escapes my mind. Then bam, all of a sudden, things are different. I'm asleep and dreaming. The transition from lucidity to dream state was instantaneous, in the blink of an eye, like I'd never experienced it before. One minute I'm listening to a song on the radio, and the next I'm not in control of my own thoughts. Hell, I have no memory of even closing my eyes, and I didn't even feel tired since I'd had a coffee before leaving, and caffeine has that strong power over me. All this to say that the dream I was now in seemingly just happened. What's strange is that in the dream I was now having, things were pretty much identical to what was happening in reality. I was still in the car, sitting in the passenger seat, with my fiancée driving. Another car comes around the bend in the road just ahead, going too fast. My fiancée doesn't react quick enough, and we collide head on. It's difficult to describe what happened next in the dream. I saw myself and my fiancée from outside my own body, yet I could still feel myself dying. I felt the coldness, and a strange emptiness and loss. I knew it was all over. I could somehow see the two people in the other car as well, a couple of teenagers in the same condition as us. It was brutally graphic, and it didn't follow that weird dream logic like most do. It was completely coherent and realistic. And right at the moment where I just knew I was dead, and things began to fade to blackness, I woke up. I was back in reality, in the car with my fiancée still at the wheel. I recognized the section of road we're on. A car comes around the bend just up ahead. It's the same car from the dream, and it's coming too fast. It passes us and barely misses smashing right into us. The line between dream and reality somehow blurred that night. Maybe it's just a crazy coincidence, since I don't know if I believe in parallel universes or what. But if that is the case, then to the other version of my fiancée and I, rest in peace, I guess. Number 3. When my grandfather passed away, my mother and I just moved into our new home. Within a week of his passing, I had a dream, and in it the phone rings, and it's him on the other line. He says, "Hey Heather, do you know who this is?" I didn't know what to say because it sounded like him, but even in the dream I was aware that he had passed away. He just laughs and says, "I don't have much time. Can I speak to your mum?" I say of course, and in the dream I run into the room to give my mum the phone, but I dropped it and it got disconnected. The next day when I woke up, I tell my mum about it, and she gets a serious look across her face and tells me that he called her in her dream too, and said, "I don't have much time. I need you to turn off Heather's heater." She wakes up and goes into my room, and the heater is shooting out flames. It was an old plug-in one that was his, and I used it every night, pointing it at my bed when I went to sleep. It's a sacred story in my family, and it gives me chills every time I tell it. Number 4. When I was 15, my stepfather got stabbed right in front of me. There was an altercation in the middle of our street at 2 in the morning, and it woke our whole house up. My stepfather and my uncle were still up drinking, and they both went outside to see what was going on. There was a young man who was absolutely kicking the shit out of our older neighbour, an alcoholic gentleman who lived a few houses down from us. We later found out afterwards that the young man was dating the older man's daughter. My stepfather and uncle went to break up the fight, and in the commotion, my stepfather was stabbed by the guy. He stumbled back onto the porch and fell, and I tried to catch him. His blood smeared down the front of my shirt. The younger guy took off, and we called 911. We were at the hospital until the early morning. When me and my mum got home, there was a message on our answering machine. It was a friend of mine from school, crying and apologizing for calling in the middle of the night, but she said that she had just had a vivid dream, and in it there was screaming and a fight, and I was covered in blood. She begged me to call her back. The timestamp on the message was the same time as the stabbing. This was in the late 80s, before computers and even cell phones really. I lived on the other side of town from her. There was no way she could have known what happened. Number 5. I was telling a friend of mine about a dream I had in which our mutual deceased friend Bill appeared. In the dream, Bill leaned his elbow on a desk and said to me, "I'm waiting on the red-haired woman." As I'm telling him this story, another friend of ours who was standing nearby who had never met Bill became noticeably upset. She had long red hair. A few months later, she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she didn't survive. Number 6. Please note that this final story is more paranormal based than the rest. Make of it what you will. I met my girlfriend through a friend. They both have family in Utah, and they visit regularly, and whenever they go, they always catch up with a friend of theirs. Let's call him Jones. So, way back when, around 1998-ish, Jones was just a kid. He had a pretty tight curfew, and wasn't allowed to stay up past a certain hour. This was a problem for Jones, since, like many of us, he had a profound love of gaming, which he still has today. One night, Jones sneaks out of his room to play a few rounds of a game before really going to bed. He walks down to the basement where the console was and starts to play. So far, so good. He's just sitting there playing when he hears a loud thud from one of the basement windows, the kind that are just above ground level. He looks, and he sees a bright red, almost pink hair-covered hand. And then her face pops into view, and it's just plain wrong. Oddly coloured eyes, long misshapen nose, and a too big smile as he described it. Immediately he starts screaming and shouting. After an indeterminate period of time, his father comes down the stairs with a gun in tow, and apparently sees the thing as well. He starts shouting right away, saying he's too young, he doesn't need this yet. The father runs out into the yard and fires a few shots off. 10 years or so go by without incident. Fast forward to around 2008, and the kid, now much closer to a man, is having strange dreams about the same creature. It's sitting on a rafter in his dad's shop, pointing down and grinning like a madman the entire time. He has this same dream for about 3 days, and then suddenly it stops. He gets called out of school one day and finds out his dad has killed himself, hung from a rafter in his shop. The funeral comes and goes. The family grieves and largely comes to terms, until one day where Jones is talking with his grandmother. He finds out that the thing that came to him in his dreams is something that all of the men in their family see. Some are strong and don't kill themselves, but others cave and do. She tells him about how it's been something that's been going on in their family for a long time, all the way back to when they first came to America. I don't know what to make of it, but if anyone knows about something similar, I'd love to hear it. Hi guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed these sort of strange stories, and I'm actually going to leave a freaky reoccurring dream that I have down in the comments section. Those of you who follow me on Facebook may have already read it, but I'm going to post it down there anyway. It's not a nightmare that became reality or anything, but I find reoccurring dreams interesting as well. You know, it's those little details that our minds just can't let go of, and they keep coming back to haunt us. It's kind of spooky. But yeah, if you have any of your own, leave them down there in the comment section for me and others to read. I want to hear what plagues your nights. Yeah, anyway, either way, I'll have another video for you guys coming very soon. But until then, sleep tight, sweet dreams, and remember, the best things happen in the dark.